160. He's gone.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Suzuki Hayabusa Round 2 Unrestricted Edition. This is a 2000 Suzuki Hayabusa that I picked up, and so this one only sat for a year, and it sat inside, which are both make it a lot easier than that one, but I did pay a little bit more for this one. Standard stuff, needs a new battery. I've seen these before on eBay, these Chinese batteries with a clear top. These are so absolutely horrible, and they don't hold charge, and they have almost no current capacity. Don't buy these. They're about 10 bucks cheaper than like a standard lead acid battery, but they're garbage, and don't buy them. I got the power commander taken off just so we can get stuff figured out. I got a C13 code, which is a IAP code, which is intake air pressure, and that is because all of the vacuum lines are disconnected. And the starter relay doesn't work from the button, but you can jump it with a screwdriver. And lo and behold, even though this guy claims that everything they tried, they couldn't get it to start, I literally put some fresh gas in it, charged up the battery, put the jump box on it, jumped the starter relay, and she will actually fire up and idle. But can't rev because it don't have any intake pressure, so it doesn't know what to do. So, good news, bad news. Good news is this is an awesome buy. I'm going to get this thing fixed and get it up for sale and make some money on it. Bad news is everything on this 2000 Busa is a little bit different than what's on the 03 Busa, so I can take almost none of that knowledge and apply it here. That being said, it shouldn't be all that hard to figure out. Take care of a few little things. Get the starter relay, jump back to the battery, negative terminal so that we can get that working. I got to put some stuff back on the bike. They took off the taillight, took off the underskin. For some reason, took off that side fairing. Get it washed, and it should be pretty straightforward. And when I'm done with this one, I'll give you guys a riding review of what it's like to be on a stretched, lowered bike. Got a little bit of a different perspective. But all in all, we can just get started by pulling up the tank, pulling out the air box, and seeing what in the hell they did with all the vacuum lines, and then we'll take care of the relay because I already know what to do with that. So right now I'm just going to basically go in here and try to get some shit off of this bike, set aside so that we can work on it. Alright, similar situation to what we did before. When you have a starter button that doesn't work, first thing you want to check out is this relay right here. And basically all this does is when you hit that button, it will connect this wire from the battery to this wire from the starter. That's it. So when you look at this, these two wires are power wires. So they are actually what sends electricity to the rest of the harness, your fuel injectors, your ECU, and so on. They're just tapping in off of this guy. What you're interested in is these two pins, and they're usually labeled A and B. I don't know if the camera can catch that. Or I guess on this one it's labeled B and M. Whatever. Anyway, so if you look at this guy right here, you can see there's a yellow and green wire. The yellow and green wire is always the positive wire. So what I'm doing here is I'm literally just jumpering this straight to the positive terminal of the battery. Now, this black and white wire right here goes to the ground, and when you hit that button up there, what it actually does is well, it's different on different bikes, but generally what it does is it sends ground to this post. And to test to see if the relay is good, what we're going to do is we're going to just jumper it to the battery. So that's all good. So we know that this relay itself works. So the problem is in this connector somewhere, or somewhere back in the harness. So what we're going to do now is we are actually going to plug this back in, and we are actually going to pull this out a little bit and strip off just a tiny little bit of this black and yellow wire, and then we're going to ground it. And when we ground it, nothing should happen until I hit the starter button. But if the starter button starts working, it's the same problem we had on the other Busa. I'll just splice something in here and tap it back to the frame or back to the battery, and we'll be golden. So when you're testing stuff like this, what you really want to do is you want to take these wire strippers, make sure you have the right gauge for your wire, and basically just bite on and then just move it without cutting the wire. So this clamp goes straight back to the ground terminal on the battery. So there we go. We got the key on. And so now if we go here, you can hear all the relays click, and I can feel the gas tank going. We still have the C13 code because that is our IAP code. But now if we hit the starter, she'll actually fire right up because I got gas in it. Now if I take this off, right, everything is still good. We got this. Boom. button don't do shit. So what we will do is we'll solder a piece of wire right here. We will run it back and ground it either on the frame. Kind of here, I can show you guys that that works too. So we just take that, clip that on there, take this off of here and clip it on to somewhere that's got bare metal like that. This should work. There you go. I mean, you got to find a nice tight spot, but we can just ground this piece right here back to the frame, to one of these bolts over here, and that takes care of our starting problem, just like that. 5 minutes. Now that we get the gas tank off, I want to point out a few things. Let's start at the bottom. So the original Busas had a return system, and what they did here was they plugged the return. And this is what happens when you plug something with a piece of plastic that isn't actually fuel proof. You get gunk like this, and then shit like this gets into your fuel and into your injectors and kills you. This right here is obviously the fuel sensing unit. We're looking at a black and yellow, black and white, and black and yellow, black and white, except this is way the wrong, not the right connectors, way too short, so we're gonna have to lengthen that and then hopefully find a connector that fits this fucking silly putty shit. And this right here is obviously broken, so we can't turn off the fuel, which is really annoying. Back over here, you actually have this electrical fuel pump, and this is where the return line used to come out, and this one at least they were smart enough to plug with a bolt. So I'm gonna have to re-plug this, but I'm gonna change out all these lines because they also, I don't think, used real fuel line because it's all nasty. Looking in here, most of the connectors are good. This is what our power commander actually plugs into. This control goes to your fuel rail and controls all of your injectors, and basically you plug one end in here and one end in here, and so the commands go to the PC and then back to your fuel rail. This is for vacuum, and this guy down here is for vacuum, and both of them are not actually plugged into any vacuum lines, which is probably what your problem is. Normally intake air pressure goes right here. There's a hole right here, but I'm not seeing it, and that looks like the right unit, but it's clearly mounted down there. So I'm going to figure out what the actual diagram is, and what you can see, what they did was they took, and some of these have hose on them, but that hose right there is cracked as fuck. So, and this nipple is just covered up. So we're gonna have to get a bunch of this hose and figure out where all the routing is, but it shouldn't be too bad. And basically just get all that back together. So for now, I'm just gonna take off this air box, just so we can get a better view of everything. All right, so now that we got all this off, you can see that they left this in place, and this is the tee-off that goes over to the fuel pump and basically, I guess, rises the fuel rate with the RPMs. But our two sensors for vacuum, this guy right here, who's kind of tangled up, and this should be like that. And this wire is also damaged here, probably when they were trying to measure stuff. So this and this guy down here both have to be tapped into the vacuum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy some of this hose, and we're going to probably replace all of it. This boot right here was totally crumbling apart. These two look okay, so they're probably holding. This is probably holding. But I'm going to replace that. So we're going to put everything back to stock the way it was. We're going to replace these fuel lines. By the look of them, they're just standard 3/8 fuel lines. We're actually going to put a fuel filter in place because there's tons of space here, and we can just put a fuel filter right in here. But basically what you want to do is you want to open this up, and you can actually see there's fuel squirting nicely in all of the cylinders. So that's good. You can see they're nicely synchronized, fuel squirting. So just gotta get some vacuum hose, get some fuel line, and then figure out where all the vacuum lines go, and hopefully that should be it for this bike, really. So I went to the hardware store and I picked up a bunch of this tubing. I think it's called 1/8 inch or 5/32 vacuum line. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to go over here. We're going to replace all this stuff because a lot of it is brittle. And so what we're going to do is we're going to replace all this shit. And this, I believe, goes to the pair valve stuff. But the pair valve has been removed off this bike, so this may or may not do anything. But this guy is supposed to be tapped in right here to the middle. And what they did was they took this middle tap and ran it down here, and ran it to the fuel vacuum valve, which is okay, except they use this little like sock right here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to put another junction in here so that we can go down to the map sensor. So, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through here, I'm going to cut little pieces, and we're going to replace every single piece just going in order down the line. So I bought an extra set of T's in case I needed them. And I also bought these. These are little vacuum caps, and so you don't have to do janky shit like this right here, where it's like not really on there except for the safety wire. You can actually buy the correct size of little caps and just put them on there, and then you don't have to worry about it. So now that we've taken care of the vacuum, we're just going to take care of the fuel lines real quick. So this is for the new return. All that's replaced. Now we're gonna need to go and find the correct plug from another harness that fits onto here, and then extend the lines from the back of the bottom of the tank. The other thing we're gonna take off is this guy. That will be leak free for years to come. So, still trying to clear this C13 code, which is the intake air pressure code, and starting to feel like a fucking retard, because so first of all, down here there's this guy on this bike that the other bike doesn't have, and this wire right here was tucked way out of the way, and these, as you can tell, red, green, and black, they have the same wires. So on this bike, because it's an older ECU, it was the first generation, it actually uses two pressure sensors. The first going to the throttle bodies, this guy right here. The second is just this, and it just chills right here, and it measures open air kind of barometric pressure, and they compares the two, and that tells it, you know, how much vacuum, how fast the engine is going. Unfortunately for me, they had this harness tucked way up in here. And so I spent probably the last hour trying to figure out why this wasn't working, until I grabbed this from the other bike and realized this harness was here. So on the 99 and 2000 bikes, you're going to have two of these things. This one actually mounts right up here, up against the airbox, and that's the one that you run a vacuum line to. And the second one is down here, and now my 2003 bike doesn't have that. So this is actually off the 2003 bike, and I don't have gas hooked up, so I can't run it. But I can turn it on and show you that you can see the fuel injection light, it clears itself away. And so if I go back here and I go to our little jumper here and plug it in, you can see C00, which means that there are no codes. So theoretically, if I leave this guy on here, right, because I only have one, and you can't run 2 bikes with one, and obviously I don't have that because it's a special part for just these bikes, so I'm going to have to order it. But once you have that on here and we get the gas tank and stuff back on, hopefully this bike should just fire up and run, because it's not showing any check engine lights, all the sensors are plugged in and happy. So I'm going to order another one of those, and then we can kind of proceed to taking care of some of the other little details once I know that it runs good. So yeah, if you have a 99 to 2000 Busa, only for the 99 to 2000 bikes, and you have one of these guys but don't have one of these guys, your shit ain't gonna run. And that's the barometric one, the blue and white one, and the black and silver one is the one that you actually want to hook up into your throttle bodies. So yeah, don't do what I did, don't waste a bunch of time, do it like that. This is another one of those little things. This is actually a rear brake extension from another harness, and I keep a couple of these just old cut up junk harnesses around because I'll steal plugs from them. And actually, as I was looking through the old Triumph harness, I actually found this guy. It's a different make and manufacture, but once we get this on here, we'll see if it runs with it. If it doesn't, I'll spend the $50 and buy the correct one. But you know, if they're all the same, right? Because I'll just take 5 volts in and measure pressure. You know, if it works the exact same way, as the same parameters as the stock factory one, then the bike will never know the difference. All right. So again, bike will start, but will not rev. So generally speaking, first of all, I went back here. This is a fucking mess. I mean, it's just a mess. I don't even have words, just a mess. So if we run this, the minute we rev it, we get nothing. And to figure out if it's fuel or not, we're actually going to just use this air hose to pressurize the fuel a little bit. Then we're going to crank it. And just like that, all of a sudden, we can revs and stuff. Which means that we have a problem. Either the fuel pump isn't producing enough fuel pressure, or it is producing enough fuel pressure, but it's clogged, and so it can't produce enough fuel pressure, or whatever. Basically, the point is there's not enough fuel pressure going to the rail to rev. So we have to, again, pull the airbox out, and now pull the whole fuel pump out, disassemble it, clean it, put it all back in, and if it starts working, cool, that means we fixed it. If it doesn't start working, I'm going to have to buy a new pump, and that's going to suck. So in here, you got some screws that hold this to the fuel rail, and then you got this guy right in here. And what that does is that connects you up to the fuel rail. Now, since the injectors work under pressure, I assume that the injectors are fine, so we're going to leave them in. But we are just going to take out this whole fuel pump assembly. And so here, I'm sure that there are little, crush washers. So when you're taking that off, be careful to make sure you don't lose the crush washers. Make sure you put them back in when you're done. So there's actually a little screw that holds this in right here, and I had to take that out as well. We got this apart. The first thing we can do is we can take off this vacuum controller and basically just suck on it and see if the diaphragm will move. But I think what they do in the explanation is what you want to do is you want to take off these 4 screws right here, and inside of here there's some sort of filter or screen, and that's usually what gets gummed up. So I'm going to go ahead and take off this other bracket here real quick just to make things easier, and then we'll get this apart and take a look inside of there. So there are 2 stages to cleaning all of this. The first is to do the pump body side, and so you want to unplug the wires, take that off, pull this guy out, and then this thing should, there it goes, slide out, just like that. And inside of there, there's a little cup. Well, I was starting to get worried I wasn't going to find any dirt or grime anywhere, but I did. I mean, this is what fuel flows out of through the to get to the injectors. The gas has got to go through this little hole and then through this cruddy old filter that, I mean, you can just see it's already just came apart. And you can just see that there's pressure damage, and you just have to force its way through there. And I mean, this is just nasty. So we could get a replacement filter, or we could just reassemble this without a filter and put a filter in line with the flow in to make it easier to clean. And I might do that because I have no idea where to get one of these filters other than to order it online somewhere. And so I want to see if this will work. So I'm probably just going to try to get this all back together without that filter in place, because it looks like the input stuff is all really clean. It's just the output stuff that was getting all grody. They probably cleaned it out this far and couldn't get that piece out and didn't bother cleaning out the rest of it. So we made some progress. I got the tail light wired in, and this will have to be mounted here somehow, but basically all of this gets jumpered into the black. The white and black, that's your brake light on the Busa side. The black is one turn signal, the green is the other turn signal, and the brown is the general light. And so now I don't want to turn this on because the fuel pump's going to start spitting fuel, but it's a nice integrated tail light, also smoked. So we're going to get that mounted up back here. Very straightforward. You can look at the diagram for the Busa, or you can just figure it out like I did. Now, the interesting part over here is our low pressure fuel pump. It's mounted right down here. This goes to the gas tank, so gas comes in here, gets pumped by this guy into this pump right here, and then I have reconfigured the return line so it returns to the tank like it's supposed to. And I've actually already tested this, and basically I'm just showing it to you guys before I button it up and put the gas tank back on. But the way this is set up now is the way it was supposed to be set up in the first place. There was actually a bracket down here that I think was designed to hold a factory second pump. But anyway, this is how this is all set up now. And so I actually tested this a minute ago. It works. The bike revs like it should. Everything is hunky-dory. So now I just got to drench myself in gasoline one more time, get this gas tank permanently in here, and then we can kind of start putting the bodywork on, let it run, let it warm up, make sure it warms up nicely, do an oil change. It looks like it stopped raining for a minute, so maybe I'll try to go around the block once or twice just to make sure that, you know, the fueling stuff works under load, but really I'm not expecting any major issues. So that's kind of how all the system came out. It's a huge pain in the ass. I will never buy another one of these bikes again, I don't think, because this is just dumb. But and for now we're using the Triumph mass air sensor. It seems to be working okay, but I went ahead and ordered the correct unit for that, and I got the new battery in here. So basically now we just got to start buttoning everything up. So here it is all back together, and if we turn the key, first of all let me show you guys this. So we got the Brake light, or we got the license plate light, brake light. Brake light's flashing. These are going to be backwards, obviously, because I'm facing it to the front. But both of those work, which is cool. And if we hit the starter, fires right up. Well, there she is. I still got one or two little kinks to take care of, but mostly it's just bolting a few things on. But I'm pretty tired today, so I'm not going to do it. But that's basically the conclusion of the build thread for this bike.